Okay, so get this. Today we're going deep on Carla Bruni. Like the former First Lady of France.
Ooh.
Supermodel the whole 9 yards.
Oh, yeah, Bruni. She's
But
fascinating.
hold on, because there's a twist. We're talking potential financial scandals here. Alongside her husband, no less, former French President Nicolas Sarkozy.
Yeah, right off the bat, we've got to acknowledge this case, it's a tangled web. There's a lot of accusations flying around Sarkozy.
For sure.
But he's maintained he's innocent. And to be fair, he was convicted in a separate corruption case that was related to his 2012 campaign, not this one.
Right, right.
So that's important to remember. As we look into Carla Bruni's role in all this.
Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's set the scene a little. Carla Bruni, think about her trajectory. Super successful model, singer-songwriter, and then, boom, First Lady of France. Married to Sarkozy shortly after he became president in 2007.
Yeah, no, that's quite a story in itself, and it definitely makes you wonder about her motivations. Was she really drawn to Sarkozy's power? Or was it a true love story? Or could there be, like, a more calculated ambition there? It's a question worth exploring as we go deeper.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks here.
Yeah.
We're talking accusations of Libyan financing during Sarkozy's 2007 presidential campaign. And let me tell you, the claims in these articles, from the Associated Press, France 24, even Wikipedia, they're pretty shocking. We're talking millions in cash from Muammar Gaddafi, allegedly delivered straight to Sarkozy and his chief of staff by this Lebanese-French businessman named Ziad Takieddine.
Yeah, and here's where things get really interesting. Because at first, Carla Bruni was just a witness in this investigation. And as things progressed, investigators started to think maybe her involvement was more than they initially thought.
Hold on. She went from witness to suspect. What happened?
Well, there were a few things. First, there's this whole issue of suspiciously deleted text messages between Bruni and Mimi Marchand. She's the infamous paparazzi queen of France.
Okay, now for our listeners who might not know, who is this Marchand character? And what kind of power does she have?
Marchand, she's a controversial figure, to say the least. She built a media empire, basically, by blurring the lines between journalism and, I guess you could say, creative information gathering. She had close ties to politicians, celebrities, even the judiciary. So she was someone who could make things happen or make them disappear, if you know what I mean.
Gotcha. Starting to see the picture here. So Marchand gets indicted in this case, and all of a sudden Bruni deletes all their text messages.
Yeah.
That's super suspicious, right? Like, is she trying to hide something?
That's exactly what investigators thought, because deleting those messages so close to Marchand's indictment, it really suggests a possible attempt to conceal evidence, which just fueled their suspicions about Bruni even more.
And it doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
Our sources also mention these frequent visits Bruni made to Sarkozy's residence while Marchand was there. Again, the timing seems a little too perfect.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Don't you think?
These visits, along with those deleted messages, it kind of paints a picture of potentially coordinated action between Bruni and Marchand. So investigators started wondering, were they meeting up to, like, discuss strategy, maybe even trying to influence witnesses or tamper with evidence?
Wow, okay, this is already getting pretty intense. We're talking a former first lady, potentially mixed up in corruption and cover-ups. This definitely adds a whole other dimension to the grifter or gifted question.
Oh, absolutely. As we dig deeper, we need to consider, was Bruni just a loyal wife, trying to protect her husband? Or was there something more deliberate going on, a more self-serving motive, maybe? We'll keep exploring that in part 2. We'll delve into the specific charges against Carla Bruni and examine the consequences she could be facing.
Can't wait. Welcome back. All right, so in part 1, we laid it all out. Right? Former First Lady, accusations of illegal campaign financing, and Carla Bruni shifting from witness to suspect.
Oh, yeah, and we can't forget those comments she made, downplaying sexual harassment in the fashion industry. It makes you wonder about where she draws the line ethically.
Right. That was a pretty shocking revelation. But okay, back to this Libyan financing case. What exactly are investigators focused on when it comes to Bruni?
Well, they're really zeroing in on two things: witness tampering and Terezity, participating in a criminal conspiracy to conceal evidence. Now, witness tampering, that's serious stuff. It means someone's intentionally trying to mess with a witness's testimony, maybe by threatening them or bribing them, or even just like persuading them to change their story.
And in this case, the witness is Ziad Takieddine, right, the businessman who first said he delivered that cash from Gaddafi, but then later he took it back. So where does Bruni fit into all of this?
Prosecutors think that Bruni, along with some others in Sarkozy's circle, might have pressured Takieddine to change his story. And that's where Mimi Marchand, our paparazzi queen, comes back into the picture.
Ah, So Marchand, with all her connections, she could have been the one pulling the strings. Okay, I'm starting to see how this could have worked. But how would someone like Marchand actually influence a witness?
Think of it this way. Marchand built her whole career on, leveraging information, right? She knew secrets, had compromising photos, and she could totally spin stories in the media to help her allies or hurt her enemies. Someone like Takieddine, who's facing legal trouble himself, might be pretty vulnerable to that kind of pressure.
So Bruni deleting all those texts with Marchand, right after Marchand gets indicted, that's looking even more incriminating now, almost like she's covering her tracks.
Exactly. Those deleted messages become a key piece of the puzzle. What if they had conversations about influencing Takieddine or other witnesses? That would be pretty strong evidence of witness tampering. And Bruni deleting them after Marchand's indictment, major red flag.
Okay, so we've got potential witness tampering, possible efforts to hide evidence. It's not looking good for Bruni so far. And to top it all off, Sarkozy's actually going to trial in 2025 over these same Libyan financing allegations.
Yeah, that definitely adds another layer to this. If Sarkozy's found guilty, it strengthens the prosecution's argument that there was a coordinated effort to cover up illegal campaign financing. And if that's the case, the question becomes, how much was Carla Bruni involved in that cover-up?
So with all these serious accusations, what's Bruni's defense? Is she denying everything?
Her legal team has been pretty quiet, actually. All they've said is Bruni provided useful clarifications to the police during questioning. But they haven't said anything more than that.
Classic non-denial denial. Sounds like they're trying to skull, hoping it'll all just blow over. But with Sarkozy's trial on the horizon, that doesn't seem likely.
Nope, the pressure's definitely on. What were those clarifications Bruni gave? Did she explain those deleted messages somehow? And those visits with Marchand? Or is she hoping the prosecution just can't prove anything?
And we can't forget, Sarkozy's political party is claiming this is all just a political hit job.
Yeah, that's their story. But Sarkozy does have that past corruption conviction. So it's a little hard to believe it's all just a smear campaign.
It's like this whole web of accusations and political games and cover-ups. And Carla Bruni's right in the middle of it all. This really complicates our grifter or gifted analysis.
It really does. If she's guilty of these charges, it's hard to see her as anything other than someone who's exploiting her position for personal gain. But if she's innocent, we have to ask, how far would she go out of loyalty to her husband? And what does that say about her judgment?
These are some tough questions, and it brings us back to Bruni's comments about sexual harassment in the fashion industry. Do you think those could come back to bite her in this case?
Definitely, critics could point to those comments and say, look, this is a pattern of her dismissing serious accusations, especially when powerful people are involved. That could really hurt her credibility with the public and even with the jury.
So what does all this mean for Carla Bruni's future? Is this it for her career? Could she actually end up in jail?
It's too early to say for sure, but there's no doubt this has hurt her image. And it raises serious questions about her judgment and her possible involvement in illegal activities. Stick with us as we head into the last part of our deep dive. We'll explore the potential fallout of this case and try to answer that ultimate question, grifter or gifted?
We're back and ready to wrap up our Carla Bruni deep dive.
What a journey, right? From supermodel to first lady to, potentially facing some serious legal trouble.
It's a wild story for sure. And it really gets you thinking about ambition and power. And what happens when you cross the line ethically?
So as we wrap things up, let's talk about the potential fallout here. What are the stakes for Carla Bruni?
If she's found guilty of these charges, witness tampering, the conspiracy to hide evidence, we're talking big consequences under French law, prison time, major fines. He could be really bad.
That's a lot to risk, especially for someone who, had it all.
Yeah.
But even if she somehow avoids a conviction, this whole thing has to have hurt her reputation.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. This scandal has definitely tarnished her legacy. Even if she's cleared legally, public opinion is a whole other story.
It's funny, though, isn't it? Sometimes bad press can actually help someone.
Yeah.
Especially in, entertainment or fashion.
Yeah, there's that whole saying, there's no such thing as bad publicity. And with Sarkozy's trial coming up in 2025, this whole scandal is going to be back in the news. It could actually work in Bruni's favor.
Right, people will be curious. They'll want to see what she's up to now.
Exactly.
But it's not just about Bruni and Sarkozy anymore, is it? This whole case raises bigger questions about the French political system, foreign influence.
For sure, and about holding powerful people accountable.
So for our listeners who are trying to figure this all out, trying to decide if Carla Bruni's a grifter or gifted, it's a tough one.
It really is. We've seen both sides throughout this deep dive. the charm, the artistic talent, the loyalty to her husband. But then you have those red flags, the deleted messages, the visits, her past comments.
So what's the verdict? Master manipulator, using her power for her own benefit. Or just caught up in her husband's ambition.
That's the question, isn't it? We've given you the facts, the different viewpoints. Now it's up to you to decide. Is Carla Bruni a mastermind playing the system? Or is she more of a pawn, like her lawyer says?
That's what makes these deep dives so interesting, right? We don't always get clear-cut answers. It keeps us thinking.
Absolutely. The Carla Bruni story isn't over yet. We'll be watching to see what happens next. Will she bounce back? Or will she fade away?
Only time will tell. And that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we explored the world of Carla Bruni, a woman who really embodies that grifter or gifted question.
Until next time, keep thinking critically. Remember, there are so many fascinating people out there with their own stories. It's up to us to dig deeper, look at the evidence, and draw our own conclusions.
Stay curious, everyone.